It's wild. It's Memorial Day weekend already. And I feel like it came super fast. It's the last day of school. We're doing an early birthday party for Marcus. And he gently reminded me that, Mom, we have to get goodie bags for everyone if we're celebrating my birthday at school early. And I was like, okay, well, Amazon, here we go.
I think Carson has one more week of school because he tells me how many days he has left. And I'm pretty sure he has the week after Memorial Day.
Yes, some schools go after. Our school does not like to go after Memorial Day, which I actually appreciate. So yeah, I'm actually there all day today doing game day. We have bought an obscene amount of games to entertain all of the
You are such a better person than I am. They definitely emailed about, like, they do something on Friday before Memorial Day weekend too, and they asked for volunteers. And they haven't asked again for volunteers, so they think they have enough. But I was like, yeah, I just can't.
Yeah. Well, I got to make it up. I missed the kindergarten graduation.
Very true. Very true.
Got to make it up.
Oh, it's, this morning I was thinking about, like, I just try to be aware and reminded of how overwhelming sometimes being a mom of small children is. And Liz sent me a reel last night of, like, the people that attach the water bottle to the fan and then blindfold themselves and see if they can, like, dodge it and if they get hit by it. And it's all the May events that are happening. And this morning, like, it's just every morning. Like this morning, I was trying to get ready. Tuesdays are always a little stressful because I have to drive to Liz's. I have to get everything like packed for myself. I have to pack multiple outfits because we film so many podcasts. I showered last night. I had to deal with my hair this morning. And then Taylor, and I have to get Taylor and Carson ready because Nick goes to the gym in the mornings. Taylor went to the bathroom, toilet clogged. And so I had to run downstairs in my towel because I had just gotten out of my cold shower to get the plunger. I come upstairs. She's like, Mom, I have hair in my mouth. And she's like crying, trying to get hair out of her mouth. And I have the plunger with my towel on. And I'm like, hold on, let me go deal with the toilet. I go deal with the toilet. And then Carson comes in. He's like, can you get me dressed? And I'm like, you are almost 7 years old. You can get yourself dressed.
I know this is bad, but I definitely just like threaten my child. I'm like, I'm going to cancel that order if you don't just get dressed. Like you can do these things.
Use cancellations.
I'm like, we're not going to be able to do X, Y, or Z, or I'm just going to have to cancel all the goodie bag stuff I purchased this morning.
Yep.
He was so funny though, because he's really into Formula One right now.
Interesting.
So I was like, is that what you want for this theme? Because we have said to him, you're not having a big all school party this year. You can pick 3 friends. So he's having a really hard time deciding who. But I said, you can pick 3 friends for the day of your birthday. We're just not doing the all out thing because we're going to save that $1,000 and put it towards, we're going to Texas in July. He really wants to go to, he says Cancun, but the new resort that's opening, right? And we're going to do that maybe somewhere around the holidays. So I said, we have to decide. You can either have this big party or you save your money and we put it towards a trip. And he's like, okay, I want to go on a trip. So I said, you can still have 3 friends. So I'm like, if we're doing this, and this was honestly his teacher's idea of, and I guess it's like this week, everybody is doing something for the summer birthdays. So I'm fine with it. It costs like $50 for these goodie bags, whatever. I'm just going to get some cupcakes. But I'm like, are you sure you want Formula One? Because that's what I purchased. And he's like, well, I think we should do a soccer theme with Messi. And I want my cupcakes to be green. I want lime cupcakes. And I'm like, I don't think they make them. He's like, and I want raspberry cupcakes because I want to do the flag for Messi. And I'm like, okay, well, we already ordered everything for Formula One. So he's like, well, maybe I'll do soccer for my 7th birthday. And then he's concerned already what he'll do for his 8th birthday. So I'm like, I love that you're a planner, buddy, but you won't even know what you want. So anyways, enough about our kids. We are here. We got a quick fiery podcast for you today. We're talking about lies that you have been told. And this is so frustrating. I mean, we should probably do a podcast, though. I think we would probably get shadow banned about all of the comments that people share with us that they have, been told by their doctor or, the refusal of care where they're asking their doctor to please run other labs. And they'll say, I had a client message me. I can get these labs, these I have to wait till September, and these they just won't run. And I'm like, this is so frustrating. It's $100 out of pocket to get all of these. And the only thing I can deduce is that they don't either have the coding for it in terms of, why I would run fasting insulin for someone, right? Like she's not diabetic, so I can't run. I think there's just probably some laws and regulations or it's off-label use type stuff. But it's just very frustrating that it's just a denial and a no and not saying like, hey, can you tell me more why you would want this? Let's have a discussion about it. Let's be partners in your care. Or as we're going to talk about today, like you just have IBS, all you need is this medication. I've had 3 examples of GI doctors, gastroenterologists telling patients, it doesn't matter what you eat. Gluten is not a problem. if you react to certain foods, it's not that issue. It's just,
You're just
other
made to be
things.
dysfunctional.
And it's so frustrating. So let's dive into this.
Yeah.
I think the classic one is just eat less and move more, right? For people who can't get weight off. And it might have worked, right? In your 20s, maybe your early 30s. Maybe you are somebody coming from a very high caloric diet. You're going to get frappuccinos in the morning, and then you're eating out with your coworkers, and then you're going through the drive-through after school with your kids because life is crazy. You haven't prioritized, and you don't realize how many, calories are in that morning cup of joe that you're having. And it can be a lot, trust me. I was a barista. I know some of those blended drinks are wild. And so maybe you have a lot of opportunity here. But
Yeah.
for the people who listen to our podcast, and most women that I know, they've been on a diet since they were 16.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one, like Liz is saying, you need to create awareness. And a lot of people, I don't think, like creating awareness. They don't like seeing how much their healthy eating actually is in terms of calories and balance. And so we cannot ignore that. But we talk a lot around how a lot of weight gain and weight issues is much more than a diet piece. It is an immunological piece. It's an inflammatory piece. It's a metabolic dysfunction piece. And when you are in this state of real, true metabolic dysfunction, you're doing everything that you think is right and it's making it worse. You are cutting calories, you're cutting carbohydrates, you're exercising more, you're moving more, you're trying to burn more calories, you're doing all the stressful things, and the body's actually getting worse because it just cannot manage and positively adapt to the stress that you are creating on it. And so this is where you have to a lot of times go backwards, or what you think in your mind is going backwards, of cutting things out, pulling back stress. How many times have we talked to people that are like, I stopped working out 6 days a week, like you said, and I'm doing 3 days a week, and I'm eating a little bit more, and I'm down 5 pounds. It's like, oh, hey, we pulled off stress. And when the body is able to function at a higher rate and you don't suppress hormone function, you don't create all of the cellular inflammation from all of the things that you're trying to do, the body can actually work a little bit better.
Yeah. This classic example here is runners and
Mm.
getting puffy and holding that, midsection weight gain. I'm like, girlfriend, this is cortisol. Your body is not responding well. And I think if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, but exercise is good for me, I'm burning calories. Or you're going to say, hey, Liz, that's my only outlet. That's the way I de-stress. That's the way I let go of everything else in my life. And I just go and put those headphones on and run and just be. I understand that that is a mental outlet, an emotional outlet. But if your body is giving you those signs and symptoms, it's a cry for help. It's saying, this is not what I need right now. Maybe we can look for alternative ways to get that mental release. Yesterday, I just sat in the car, listened to the birds, and sat there and just did some deep breathing. Ethan, I was confusing them. Ethan was sleeping in the back, and I was like, this was perfect, right? Nobody was home. The birds were just chirping. It was really meditative. I'm not a person to meditate. I've said that a lot of times, but I just think that when you're doing this physical exercise and it's too much, your body's going to tell you, and you're not going to see weight loss, and you're not going to have great thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, all of these things that you might be struggling with until you can recognize that's the thing that's keeping me in this chronically elevated cortisol state. So just listen to that. We're not saying that you can't run. We're not saying that you can never strength training. What we're saying is, in this season of life, until you fix the dysfunction, maybe it requires less of that and more of the non-stressful movement. Walking in nature, right? That can be very meditative. That can be very calming. It still gets your calories, it's not as much, right? We understand that, but it can be something that you can still do movement, but you're just not doing that stressful movement. So I think that's number one. Number two, and this is something that we could talk about ad nauseum, is that your labs are normal, yet you feel like crap, right? So if your labs are normal, they're not going to do further investigation, nor are they going to look at what level of normal are you. We see this a lot, and I've had this happen to me, especially postpartum. Labs come back, everything seamlessly looks, air quote here, normal. A couple markers are high, maybe a little bit low. No one's calling me about it. Like for a while, my white blood cells were on that low end of normal. Well, that's not a good thing in terms of immunological function. Several indications of pushing towards that anemia pattern. Well, I was bleeding for freaking 14 weeks, right? Like obviously there's something going on here. And so if I didn't have the knowledge and the education to look at this and look at this from an optimal lens, I wouldn't have caught a lot of those things, right? And I know that so many people they rely on their doctor because they trust their doctor, right? You go to the doctor when you're sick and you're like, hey, doc, I don't feel well. How can you help me? And it's going to be one of two things. You're crazy. Everything looks fine. So it's normal, right? Or you are annoying me and I want to get you out of my office. So we're just going to give you a prescription. Let's say SSRI, because that seamlessly is like the answer to everything. Ladies in perimenopause, postmenopause. When we look at this, though, those medications actually make things worse. And we're also looking at, this normal range. And by the way, the average American is on 4 medications. Over the age of 65, they're on 5 medications. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to be compared to this diseased population. I want to be optimal. And so when we're looking at blood work, we're looking at patterns and trends. We're looking at optimal ranges that were once our ranges before the US continued to become diseased, right? We look at 73% of people are obese or overweight. We look at 1/3 of the population having diabetes. I don't want to be part of that population. And so when you're thinking even at these normal levels, what I would say is look at what the lab range is. If you don't fall within, let's say, the middle of that lab range or a little bit below the middle range, you're up on that higher end of the range, that's going to be outside of a functional range. Your A1C is a 5.4. That's the upper end of that A1C range for them. They're looking at 5.6, 5.7 before they say you're pre-diabetic. No, 5.4 to me is somebody on the brink of pre-diabetes. We want to really see you at a 5, a 5.2. So that's one example.
Yeah. And in general, when doctors are looking at labs, they're looking for disease. They're looking for progressed disease that they can medicate, that they can operate on, that they can diagnose. And if they cannot do that, you're normal. And most people trying to get labs are not feeling normal. They're feeling awful. And so you cannot just go off of labs, because also when it comes to hormone labs, and I think we probably need to do our own podcast on hormone labs alone, most of the ranges are arbitrary. When you go to a Quest versus a LabCorp, you will actually see very different normal ranges. And they are picked by, oh, this sounds good, right? And a perfect example of this is testosterone for males. We talked about this at the conference that we were at this weekend. They basically said, 300. Below 300 is low. And the reason that they chose that is because they know 98% of males are not going to be below 300. And in turn, they will not need to prescribe testosterone. And as soon as that person gets above 300, guess what? That prescription no longer covered by insurance. Same thing with thyroid labs. As soon as your T3 gets above a certain point, regardless of whether you now feel amazing or not, your TSH maybe gets too low, because again, if your T3 is optimal, your TSH is going to be suppressed a little bit. You're going to feel good. The TSH is not of concern being suppressed, but because of guidelines and because of FDA and because of drug companies, you are now no longer going to be covered under that level, and you're going to have to lower your dose back to a range that you don't feel as good at. And so this is the problem with our wonderful drug companies and our wonderful FDA and our wonderful government and our wonderful medical system. You're covered until you feel good, and now you're no longer covered and you have to lower that medication or come off that medication. And so this is why we are in the functional space where you can be optimal. We work for optimal. Is it out of pocket? Yes, it is. But guess what? Optimizing your health might cost you some money. Do you want to feel amazing, or do you want to not be covered? I don't know. I'd rather pay out of pocket and feel amazing and live my life feeling amazing and spend money towards that. Because how much mental energy it takes from you on a day-to-day basis to feel awful, worth way more than what I pay to optimize my health. So the labs are normal. You're fine. What's normal? It's made up in a lot of cases. And especially with hormone labs have no low limits for females. You can be 0 estrogen, 0 progesterone, and 0 testosterone. You will not be flagged. You will only be flagged if it's high. And at that point, they actually don't do anything. Other than maybe in a testosterone situation, they might put you on metformin because if it's a PCOS. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, you will not be handled.
But when we look at that, the underlying mechanism that's causing this is a metabolic dysfunction and insulin resistance. It's not the testosterone. I mean, yes, testosterone is high, but you have to fix the insulin resistance, instead of just going after, let's say, an aromatase inhibitor and trying to suppress. So I think there's a lot to dive into, and we can do a whole podcast on that.
Yes.
And speaking of hormones, number 3, birth control balances your hormones. This is a blatant lie. So for me, I had horrible hormonal acne, horrible PMS as a teenager, and the only solution from the doctor was birth control. right? What we know is that this is just a Band-Aid fix. It actually shuts down your natural production. When you get off of birth control, if you've been on birth control for a long time, you get off of birth control, now your hormones are coming back online. It's almost like you're going through puberty all over again because you've just not had a natural production here.
Yep.
And so then you can have all kinds of symptoms and people are like, well, F it. I'm just going to go back on the birth control, which by the way, is one of the top depleting nutrient drugs out there with many side effects. And so if you are having a lot of these issues with your periods, painful, PMS symptoms, PCOS, all of these other things that we look at when hormones are dysregulated, my advice would be get a Dutch test, work with a practitioner, get to the root of your metabolic issues and calm down the inflammation so that your body can actually hear and communicate appropriately and then address whatever's going on with those hormones and the imbalances, right? So we've talked a lot about, especially for women age 35 and beyond, progesterone takes a nosedive. Maybe you need progesterone to kind of balance out your estrogen, especially in menopause, perimenopause. That's the number one thing. We've talked about this. I've said progesterone is one of my favorite hormones forever. I'm on progesterone. Becca's on progesterone. We love it. I think that everyone should be on it if they are in a state of relative estrogen dominance or estrogen dominance, because it's very calming. And by the way, if you've had a hysterectomy and they told you that you didn't need progesterone, that's complete bullshit. They clearly don't understand how hormones work. They don't understand that many other organs in your body have receptors for progesterone. If you're struggling with mood imbalances, you feel like you're crazy, you're going to kill your husband for a week out of the month, and then you love him, the other 2 weeks, you probably need some progesterone support, and you want to counterbalance the estrogen fluctuations, those hot flashes. The hot flashes that you get are big surges of estrogen. So now you feel like if you were to go in the middle of a hot flash and get your blood work done, I think the example that he gave us was like over 500 for estradiol, right? You're getting this huge surge and then it's dropping down. You have these pulses with hormones all day long. And so this is, again, why we're looking at not just like labs, but we're looking at your symptoms. Okay, so if she's got this huge surge, she's really estrogen dominant in that moment. We know that because she's symptomatic with this hot flash. But 3 hours later, you could take it and your estrogen could be at a 5. And then you're thinking, oh, maybe I need estradiol. When in fact, no, you're in this roller coaster. Estrogen's fluctuating. What you want is progesterone to counterbalance that and balance you out. So I think there's a lot of things that we have to look at. And I would just say with the birth control situation, go back and listen to. We have many episodes, I think probably over a dozen at this point in time, on the types of birth control, their side effects, how to come off of birth control, why we need to support liver detoxification, balance minerals in the body, support your gut health and ovulation, right? There's so many things that impact your hormones. They're chemical messengers. They are downstream products. They are not the root cause itself.
Yep. And I think the last thing I want to add here is that many women have told me that they are on hormone replacement therapy and that they were put on hormone replacement therapy. And what they're actually on is a birth control. And so if your hormone replacement therapy says norethindrone, medroxyprogesterone acetate, levonorgestrel, dihydrogesterone, these are all progestins. These are the synthetic form of progesterone. They are not bioidentical progesterone. These are what is in the research showing the increased risk of breast cancer and uterine cancer. The progestins, the Provera, the Premarin, Proprem. Those are the ones that everyone fears increases risk of breast cancer and of uterine cancer. Not bioidentical progesterone, not bioidentical estradiol. These, the progestins, the birth controls. So if your doctor says you're on birth control or you're on hormone replacement therapy, triple check what is in it. Because you may not be on hormone replacement therapy. You may be on birth control, which is definitely not the same thing. So again, probably another podcast for another day to dive into that, but birth control does not balance your hormones. It shuts off your hormones. And when you are struggling with hormone-related symptoms, the last thing you want is to shut off your hormones. So next up, just IBS. Food doesn't matter. Food has no role when it comes to how you feel with your IBS. Because food is not your largest input of your day. I'm not sure what else could be, honestly. Maybe water, but I would even say food outweighs far what the impact of poor water is. I'm not discounting water quality, but I am trying to magnify, maybe is the right word, the importance of food quality. Because food is inflammatory in nature. All foods are.
Mm-hmm.
Every food has an inflammatory aspect to the body. When you eat food, it creates an inflammatory response. Not a bad thing, but how much that inflammatory response release is very dependent on the types of food that you are putting into it. What all your body has to do to break it down and get it to the resources and the nutrients and the vitamins and minerals that you should be getting from your food. When you are eating whole foods, when you are eating foods that our body is meant to eat and the earth created and natural in a bottom line, they are natural to the body. There's much less work that the body has to do to utilize those foods comparatively to gluten, dairy in a lot of forms, not all dairy. Some dairy can be great. Soy, sugar, alcohol, processed foods, even the gluten-free products, guys. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I eat gluten-free, but then we have the gluten-free crackers, we have the gluten-free breads, we have the gluten-free pizza crust, we have all the things gluten-free. I eat vegan. Like the processing that all these things has to go through can be very inflammatory to the GI lining. And on another token, just removing those foods is not going to solve severe dysfunction either. So people that have SIBO, people that have colitis and Crohn's and these extreme GI related issues, I'm sorry, but a low FODMAP diet is not going to cure those things. There's many more layers that are there that need to be delved into than just, oh, I don't eat gluten or dairy, I don't eat FODMAPs, I don't eat histamine foods, whatever it might be, or whatever you've been told. Those might calm inflammation for a period of time. But at the end of the day, there's so much more that has to be done.
Preach. I mean, it's when you're going through a healing protocol, I get a lot of people messaging me, that things have gotten worse after their SIBO treatment. I said, yeah, great. You did rifaximin. Maybe you had another antibiotic with it. Did you support the gut lining? Did you support low stomach acid, pancreatic function, liver, gallbladder health, and bile flow? No, none of that was ever addressed. It was low FODMAP and a bunch of antibiotics. So when we get into this place, we don't go through the proper repair process. You're just setting yourself up for things to get worse because those antibiotics didn't just get after the opportunistic bacteria. They also depleted your good bacteria. Bacteria is inflammatory in terms of, these bugs that are living inside your body, feasting and fermenting off of different, carbohydrates and types of foods that you are consuming. Let's say sugar alcohols. That's another big one people react to and respond to. And so if you're just eliminating all of that, great. You might get some symptom relief in the moment, but if you don't address the underlying root cause and why in the small intestine things are allowed to overgrow, it starts upstream. Digestion is a north to south process. If you're only going after the SIBO and you're not considering all of the things that I mentioned before, you're going to relapse or things are going to get worse. You're going to feel good while you're on the treatment and then you're going to feel worse after. So there's a lot of things to look at here. IBS is bullshit. It's inflammation, it's bacteria, and it's stress. And you need to have a holistic lifestyle approach to really get to the root cause and reverse this because you absolutely can reverse it. Another big thing I want to call out here is genetics. Some of you all have multiple genetic impairments or blocks, leaving you at a higher risk for your immune system to overreact and overrespond. So you could have a hair fire trigger set you off while nobody else in your house is being set off, but you ate the same thing they did and you are just blowing up because your immune system is overreacting. And when that happens, you overreact with something called lipopolysaccharides, which are endotoxins. They get out of the gut and into the bloodstream. They go to the liver. They cause inflammation. What happens when there's inflammation in the liver? It tries to protect itself. It creates fatty deposits. This leads to high triglycerides and fat, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and low bile flow. Just reviewed labs yesterday. This woman has less than 1 bile acids in her serum. She basically has no bile going through, and she wonders why she's constipated and she's bloated and she's reacting to things, and she also has SIBO. Bile is very protective. It's very, very important. If you're working on a SIBO case and nobody's talking to you about bile, run far away because they don't understand how to address SIBO long-term. I digress. Let's move on. The last thing here is that things are just going to get worse as you age. It's just aging. Oh, that's just normal. It's just motherhood. It's 40s. It's 50s. How many times people tell us like after the age of 30, everything just falls apart? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're stressed out. You've got way too much on your plate. You don't say no. You don't look at your labs. You're not being proactive. You're eating like shit because you're on the run. You're not sleeping because you have little ones. And you're not supporting your body with minerals and vitamins and nutrients to counterbalance the stress of this lack of sleep. No, instead, you're just running off of caffeine, maybe eating once or twice a day. And you wonder why your mood's all over the place. You're depressed. You aren't happy with the family that you've created because you've got postpartum depression and your doctor is there to help you. Huge thing that we talked about this past weekend is postpartum depression and progesterone. I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast and on social media. I love progesterone and I love it, especially postpartum. Yes, in some of the research, it can impact your milk supply. So maybe if you are somebody who's not producing and you're trying to get your milk supply up, maybe that's not the right thing for you, but it is powerful. He gave a story and he was offline talking to another doctor. He's an ER doctor. Dr. Rouzier is who we were talking about here. Dr. Neil Rouzier from WorldLink Medical. He was an ER doctor and he said the amount of people that would come into his ER saying, I want to kill myself. I don't want my baby. I don't want to be around my family. I don't want to live anymore. And he gave them a shot of 100 milligrams of progesterone. And a few hours later, they're like feeling so much better, being able to go home, sending them home with a prescription for progesterone, not progestin, birth control that we just talked about. He said, it's amazing. He said, I would sometimes pay out of pocket for this, $20, but it's off-label use. So sometimes they get in trouble, right? And so this is something over the counter. You can get Quicksilver progesterone. You can use Progon B progesterone. We love those products. They're in our full script. You can use those to help support PMS, later half of your cycle, or every day increase the later half of your cycle if you are struggling with a lot of PMS. 10 drops is about 40 milligrams of progesterone, so it's a pretty low dose, pretty safe. Yep. Obviously, this is not medical advice. We're not telling you what to do here, but if you are somebody prone to postpartum depression, let's say you've had a baby in the past, things were really rough, and now you're, wanting to have more children or you're about to have another, get progesterone on board. Do it in the supplemental form or work with a provider. We work with Vital Medical. We work with Gentle Giant Care. Both of those companies can help you if your provider, your doctor is not going to give it to you. I fought with my doctor to get progesterone. She tried to give me Provera. I said, that's progestin. I'm talking about progesterone. Give me the prescription for progesterone. Hold, please. Let me go back and talk to the doctor. Okay, the doctor says, yes, she'll give it to you. But if you don't advocate for yourself, if you, again, just blindly accept these prescriptions, you're going to get the wrong thing because synthetic is cheaper. So you want progesterone. And I think that that is really important because, again, when we talk about these SSRIs, these anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications, most of the time it can be fixed by supporting progesterone and your thyroid. And then you don't have the cascade of negative effects from the SSRI. And by the way, it's addictive and it's really hard to come off of and it makes you crazy. What makes you not crazy and love life again is good quality thyroid medication and progesterone.
Yeah. I mean, and you cannot replace progesterone with an SSRI. You cannot replace estradiol with a statin. You cannot replace testosterone with diabetes medication. Like all of these have extreme long-term side effects, and the long-term studies on these show worse outcomes. Same thing, statins. Statins are increased risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, muscle damage and weakness, and joint pain and fatigue, all due to CoQ10 depletion. Being on a statin cuts your testosterone by 50%. 50%. Like, we are putting these things in place when it is a hormone deficiency. It is not a medication deficiency. SSRIs are terrifying to me, like absolutely terrifying. They are altering brain function. They have so many side effects: weight gain, insulin resistance, infertility, osteoporosis. And when you are on them for long periods of time, I'm not saying you may need something for a short period of a really hard time in your life. They are meant to be short term. But coming off of them, suicidal ideations, your brain hurts. People that talk about trying to come off of SSRIs say it feels like their brain is shaking in their head. That is terrifying to me. And doctors that are open to talking about it on social media talk about how dangerous these medications are to come off of. And so can we please look at what's actually going on in the body and not just gaslight people? Like, talk to people about their life. What's really interesting, I heard this morning, a lot of the people that, like, the studies that are done on people that live the longest, like people that live into their hundreds, what they look at is that they have purpose in their life. They have community. A lot of them have dogs. Dogs are amazing. I don't like cats. I'm sorry if you're a cat person. Don't hate me. I just am a dog person. But like they have bigger purpose. And I think that is another piece that is so often missed in these people's lives, in the people that do horrible crimes, in the people that commit suicide. Like it is that lack of purpose. And so, yes, hormones, 100%. But also look at your life. Are you happy? Do you have that purpose that fulfills you on a day-to-day basis? Liz and I live a very challenging day. Like being an entrepreneur, I cannot emphasize enough how frustrating your day-to-day is every day. But because we have a bigger purpose and because we have something that is fulfilling, regardless of how hard it feels, you get through it and you are still happy. Maybe I am not, I should rephrase that. I am still fulfilled at the end of the day. Maybe every day I'm not sunshines and rainbows happy for my husband. Maybe that isn't it. But like I am still fulfilled and I am still deeply gratified by my day. And so that is the last thing I think we're going to end this on is just, if you are struggling, do not accept normal. Do not accept suboptimal. Find your best life, whether that is through us or someone else. Find someone that is going to fight for you. Find someone that is going to dig for you. Find someone that is going to give you the answers that you deserve to have and the life that you deserve to have, because lying to you about your health and about your labs and all of these things is not acceptable in our world. We might give some tough love. That might be part of it. But you deserve to have the life that is amazing, not the life that is quote unquote normal for most of this population.